Oh, I really feel like making some Voyatoran today. Wonder how... what are you doing here? Mattel. What am I supposed... Oh, I have an idea. Alright, and done. Whew, these came out pretty well. And I'm bored now. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Recap Review. Today we're looking over the first of the 2006 sets, which also happened to be the smallest, the Voyatoran. From left to right we have set number 8724 Garen with approximately 21 parts, 8723 Piruk with approximately 27, making him the set with the most amount of pieces, 8725 Balta, comprised of 22, 8722 Kazi, 25, 8721 Velika, 21, and 8726 Dalu at 25 as well. Time of release, these sets were approximately $4. So obviously these guys are a smidge bit controversial, but also very helpful. Story-wise, they comprise the Voya Nui resistance team. Team comprised of the sole remaining Voyatoran left unenslaved by the Piruk. They are all quite kooky, quirky, interesting, with their all little quirks and caricatures, that word. But for the sake of this review, we are going to be looking over each and every one separately. So we're going to go from left to right, starting with Garen. Set number 8724, comprised of approximately 21 pieces. So, Garen over here is the, story-wise, leader of the Voya Nui Voyatoran resistance team. And he has these cool, formerly exclusive tool pieces. Now, these parts right here, in silver, used to be exclusive as, I think in 2003, as a Brickmaster exclusive? I'm not sure, though. As you can see here, there are no real special parts or recolors aside from these, really. Now, in all the Voya Nui resistance team sets, all the tools are like a really light palish silver. They're not dark at all. So they're kind of misprint-y, but they all have it, so not really. Let's get into the pros and cons of this set. Pros would be a nice amount of flexibility. He has some in his hips, his ankles, and the arms do move, as well as his head, which is nice to see. His color scheme, for the most part, is fairly consistent, comprising of dark gray, silver, and black. He's an Voyatoran, so that color scheme works out very well for him. Another cons would be he's a parts pack. Since there are no exclusive parts to him, you can pretty much pick him up at time of release for $4 and just add them to your collection of pieces. It's very useful for that, I'd say. And a story supplement as well. So, pretty much covers the pros, I would assume. Let's get into the cons. Cons would be the lack of mobility. Fortunately, his arms are placed very awkwardly, so moving forward, difficult. Very difficult. His legs, those are pretty much okay. Another con would be the fact that there are no new parts in him. He is literally a parts pack. You can get the majority of these pieces, if not the entirety, from any given Bionicle parts bin and build him. Let's see. What else? Yeah, arms stick out to the back too far, which does not allow for that, for moving forward. He doesn't really have any hands, and the hands are kind of awkward at that. And I guess the most glaring of all, he doesn't have any eyes. This is using the Metru head And there's no eye stalk. So he looks kind of soulless, which is a little bit unfortunate. But overall, a nice parts pack. Very innovative, okay, maybe not innovative, but very unique. That's for certain. So that's Garen. Let's move on to Piruk. Set number 8723, approximately 27 pieces. Now, Piruk is one of the larger of the Matoran, probably comparable in size to Dalu. He's a Lee Matoran, with his shredder claws, which he seems to shave and peck at when he's at a nervous habit. When he's nervous, which is a habit. My apologies. So let's get right into it. Pros would be mobility, which he does have some. He has better mobility than Garen in his arms. Less mobility, but some in his legs, in his hands, ankles, and as well, the head. Now the pro would be the fact that he is so creative. He's a completely new Matoran design. He has the Matoran stature, and he looks really good. Very creative looking. Now the pro would be the consistent color scheme, and since he's a Lee Matoran, he's comprised of green, dark green at that. Seems to be transparent lime, gray, and silver. So that's nice to see. Oh, and black, but very little amount. Yeah, overall, he's a solid set. Another pro, as with Garen, he's a parts pack, so there's nothing really exclusive to him. You could find him in any given Bionicle parts bin, so that's kind of nice. So, he's very solid. Cons, however, would probably have to be the same as Garen's, although he does have a lack of mobility in his legs, specifically here. If you get him off to the side like this, yeah, it's better. But he suffers from the same leg mobility issues that the Rahaga did. His arms are a lot better, though. Another con would be the silver, which does break up his color scheme, since aside from these claws, he has no other silver. And considering in the story, these guys are supposed to be more, rebuilt, and these are his hands, I would have expected them to be a little bit closer to his color scheme instead of blatant silver. Another con, as was shared with Garen and the rest of them, no eyes. Some may say that this breaks up his color scheme and contrasts too violently. However, some others may also say they act as pseudo-eyes. So it's all up to personal opinion. And then there are stability issues given his feet. But other than that, I'd say no other cons. He is what he is. Parts pack. That may be a con or a pro, depends on how you look at it. But that's Piruk. Pretty nice. Let's move on to Balta. Set number 8725, comprised of 22 pieces approximately. Balta is definitely a lot more unusual. He's a lot like Kazi in that he's the only Matoran that has its own unique build and doesn't share similarities of said build with another Matoran. Piruk, Dalu, Garen, Velika, and then him and Kazi are pretty unique. Pros would be the amount of mobility in this set. He has mobility in his shoulders, which is very unique to see. His elbows, wrists, hips, and ankles, and head. His color scheme, given that he is a Matoran, is fairly consistent, consisting of dark red, dark gray, silver, and Keat orange. He has 2 long blades, which is pretty cool. And yeah, nice mobility, fair color scheme, parts pack as well. Cons are fairly much the same thing. He's a parts pack, no new pieces, so you can find him in any given Bionicle bin. This, I'm sure, to some can be wobbly and a little unusual. Makes posing difficult, maybe for some. I do not personally share that view, I like it. The silver, some may find to be a con, because otherwise his color scheme is fairly solid, consisting of only 3 colors, but the same can also be said for the bright orange. Same con in the hips as Piruk and the Rahaga, so that's a bit of a shame, but he does have a lot of mobility up here, so it makes up for it. Eyes are also soulless. He has no eyes, and nothing like Piruk to make up for that fact. So, he's a solid set, very complimentary, but that's basically the gist of it. With that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to Speak of the Matoran himself. Kazi. Set number 8722, approximately 25 pieces. Kazi is quite unique, similar to Balta, similar to Dalu. He has a completely unique build, color scheme's very consistent, so on and so forth. Let's just jump into the pros and the cons, and his tuning forks. Pros: mobility in his arms, which is nice to see. Consistent color scheme of white, gray, light gray, and this transparent blue. He also has mobility in his head, which is nice to see, and he's a parts pack. Those are the general pros. The cons, unfortunately, outweigh them. He has pretty much no legs. This is his standard construction. Some people may take his legs and put them up like that, which I had them for a long, long time. This would be better. Makes him taller, makes him stand upright, but no. No. If you're going by the instructions, this is proper. So he's at a constant hunch. It looks very unnatural and makes good-looking poses very difficult. So he has no knees. That's a con. They stick out too, giving him a very awkward shape. Another con. No eyes. In fact, out of everyone, he doesn't even have a head. He just has a handpiece. Think about that. Everything inside of your skull being held by your hand. Don't think about that. That's too morbid. My apologies to any parents. Another con, some may say, that these break up the color scheme, given that they are the only ones here. However, they do go along with his Komatoran scheme. So, and finally, of course, he's a parts pack as well. You can find him in any given Bionicle bin. There's nothing really special about him. So unfortunately, as unique of a set as he is incredibly cumbersome, very restricted, and overall very difficult to enjoy and have fun with. Complimentary, sure, but other than that, not much. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to slightly better lighting and a great being in disguise. Velika, set number 8721, with approximately 21 pieces. How much controversy have you stirred up, good sir? Well, that aside, let's get into how you are as a set. Pros and cons. Pro: he is the exact same or very similar build to Garen, meaning that they're fairly interchangeable. You get one, you have the other. Another pro: he is one of the last few brown colored sets, meaning he is special. Another pro would definitely be the mobility in his arms, legs, and neck. His color scheme is also incredibly consistent, comprising of the, what do you call this brown? I'm going to call it Hershey brown. Hershey brown, dark gray, silver, and orange, which we have seen before in Pomatoran or Po color schemes. And he's a parts pack. Once again, complimentary parts pack. So he's pretty cheap, and you can just get him for a bunch of parts if that's what you're looking for. Cons are shared pretty much with him by all the other Matoran. Garen specifically, these come out too far back, meaning he can't really poke his arms forward, although he has longer weapons, so that kind of helps him compensate for that. He's got no eyes. The orange, some may say, break up the color scheme, and he has very stubby legs. But that's just a general Matoran thing. And of course he's a parts pack, so have that as you will. But overall, he's nice. Not exactly what I'd expect to see in a Great Bean Matoran, but you know, what can you say? That's Velika. Not bad. He's like Garen. So let's go ahead and move on to the sixth and final Matoran, Dalu. 8726, comprised of 25 pieces. Now Dalu, to my knowledge, is the tallest of the Matoran. She's very tall, very unique build, and that's comprised primarily of her arms and legs, which are Barakal limbs. Now in the story, Dalu's a very spunky fighter, doesn't like to run away. You know, insert whatever Stort Sager in jokes you have here. Overall, very solid looking set. I do want to mention that her mask is differently colored than the standard Great Rao. It is a brighter, translucent, transparent, fuzzy blue. I don't know what you call this, but it is brighter. My copy of the set, because I cobbled it together off of Bricklink, unfortunately does not share this trait. But keep in mind, if you do have a Dalu and the mask is brighter, that is very, very standard and par for the course. So let's get into the pros and cons. Pros. Really unique, quite different from all the others. Like, she does share some build similarities with Piruk, but they are few and far between. And she's quite tall and unique for it. Color scheme is fairly consistent, considering you have the dark gray, silver, matte blue, a little bit of black, and a little bit of dark blue. Which is interesting to see. Oh, and the transparent blue, but you can lump that into the dark. Like I said, the build is complex, or as complex as these guys can get. She does have mobility, at least in her ankles, and a fair amount in her arms, and her head. She is also a parts pack, however not to the same degree as the other 5, considering her masks, and you could argue her weapons. Not to mention she has a large variety of pieces to pick and choose from. So, she is also another parts pack, and a very good one at that. I think that pretty much sums it up, pretty much the same as the other 5. Let's get into the cons. She does share a lot of the same cons, like, because of her build, in order to walk, she has to, like, stretch her leg outwards. It really gets across the point that these are rebuilt Matoran, and they were not very well rebuilt. Which is nice if you're looking at it from a story perspective. Terrible if you're looking at it from a set perspective. So that's a con. She does have a very awkward shape. Some may consider that a con, others may not. It does look a little bit unusual, but again, one may argue, story purposes. Another con would probably be the fact that the dark blue and the transparent blue do break up the color scheme. Not so much a mask, but some may argue that as well, because otherwise it'd be a very consistent color scheme. Now, I could peg her for not having any eyes, but the Great How kind of negates that, since you really cannot, whoopsie daisy, you can't really see the eye holes. But aside from all those, she is fairly solid. I would say the most solid out of all the Voya Matoran. So take that as you will. So let's get into a quick overview before we wrap this up. So overall, the Voya Matoran are all very unique. You get one, and you can't really say you have them all, because they all have something special, something unique, and something that separates them from other Matoran. Story-wise, they were rebuilt in weaker forms, and that definitely shows here. There are many other Matoran builds that can attest to being strong, very, very good looking, but these brought something very special to the table. Custom builds, extraordinarily unique, and an inspiration to a lot of other Matoran builds everywhere. Unfortunately, they do have their fair share of cons, specifically in mobility, the lack of eyes, and their generally unusual shapes. And the fact they have really nothing special in the line of parts, and are rehashes from a lot of sets that we have gotten in the past. Literally, sets were cobbled together, and these were the result. However, that's not to say that they're bad, they're just very unique, and very unusual. So take that as you will. That has been the Voyatoran. I hope you've all enjoyed this review, and join me next time when I go over the Nah, you thought I was going to say Piraka. Nope! Unfortunately, next week I'm going to be going over the recently canonized Traga Lakan, aka Gold Good Guy. Thank you all very much for watching, and if you would like to discuss this review, either go down to the comments or go to the TTV message boards, which recently opened up. Also, if you're interested, subscribe to the channel. That's totally up to you. Thank you very much for watching. See you next week.